Good morning. Welcome to this May 17th meeting of the Architectural Review Board of the City of Palo Alto. Could we have the roll call, please?
Good morning. Chair Firth.
Here.
Vice Chair Balte.
Present.
Board Member Thompson.
Present.
Board Member Liu.
Present.
Board Member Guyer.
Here.
Thank you.
Are there any oral communications? This is the time on the agenda for people to speak on matters not on the agenda but within our jurisdiction. Have no comment cards and no volunteers from the audience. Agenda changes, additions, and deletions. Staff? Anything?
I was just confirming our future agenda, and it looks like it has stayed the same so far. We don't have this on the agenda, so I'll just put it out there as information. There are code changes that went into effect May 10th. Some of it around noticing, there's some gross floor area changes, things of that nature, so I'll make sure that we send you a copy of those changes.
Thank
but
you.
that, of course, went to public hearings as well.
All right. So you'll get those out to us this week. And how are you doing with your moving?
We are all in a temporary location. I think we were calling it the newsroom. There's about 10 of us in one room, so.
And you're on the first floor now?
Right next to.
Yes, our reception is still on the 4th floor, so that's where we would ask people to go first. But yes, we're physically on the 1st floor.
For those of us who went looking for you on the 5th floor and saw the hazard notices.
And saw the construction, yes.
Good to know that you're somewhere. All right. And the agenda, our upcoming agendas are as submitted. You don't expect any changes in those. All right. Anything else?
On June 20th, there's going to be the first meeting of the North Ventura Coordinated Area Plan on Wednesday, June 20th at 5:30.
That's here at City Hall, Alex? Is that at City Hall? People can find it. People can find it on the city website.
Yes, I don't recall the location. It's not final. I think it's a hold the date time and not an actual meeting announcement.
Well, we look forward to hearing about your progress. All right. Item number 2. Public hearing, it's quasi-judicial. It concerns 356 Hawthorne Avenue, and we are asked for a recommendation, a request for approval of a major architectural review to allow the demolition of an existing 4-unit, 4,000 square foot multifamily residential development and construction of a new 4,500 square foot multifamily residential development comprised of 3 detached residential units, each with an attached single-car garage. This is exempt from CEQA. The zoning is RM15, low-density, multiple-family residential. The project planner is Philip Brennan. Philip.
Good morning to the members of the board. Just want to provide a brief reminder of this project. It's proposing 3 new condominium units, detached, a 1-story bungalow unit and 2 2-story units along Hawthorne Avenue and Bryant Court. The max residential density for this is 3 units, which is being provided. This item was previously heard before during its first formal before the board during March 15th. At that meeting, the board provided the applicant with specific guidance to guide the applicant in helping make the board's findings to approve this project. Those comments were related to further distinguishing the units from one another through materials, colors, and architectural style. Comments were provided to revise the color scheme of the exterior color scheme of the units, again, to help further distinguish them and also provide more warmer tones and blend into the surrounding neighborhood a little bit better, and to incorporate more appropriate native species into the landscape plan. The applicant received that feedback and has responded by further distinguishing the units by making the street-facing units modeling them after craftsman style type architecture. As you can see on the left of the center line was the proposal that was presented at the March 15 hearing. On the right of the center line are the new proposed units. As you can see, added detail has been incorporated into the design, including sunburst, pediments, gables, and corbels. The color scheme has just changed as well. The applicant has provided a material board with color swatches, so and they've also responded by incorporating more native species into the landscape plan, replacing 6 of the originally proposed species with western redbud trees, Sonoma sage, bush anemones, and other grass, native grass and shrub species. The project is compliant with the comprehensive plan and all applicable design guidelines. The one issue that still remains is the consistency with the performance criteria outlined in the code regarding trash disposal enclosures being located as far away from abutting properties as possible. As you can see in the highlighted portions of the schematic here, the trash enclosures are abutting the shared property lines on the left and right of it, of Unit 3 and number 2. And so we've written in a condition of approval to have these enclosures move closer to the units to comply with the performance criteria. So that is a consideration we'd like the board to discuss. Otherwise, staff is recommending that the board approve the 3-unit multifamily condominium project based on findings and conditions. And I know the applicant has a presentation, so I'd like to welcome Michael up to the board.
Thank you. Any questions of staff?
I have a question, please. Good morning, Philip.
Morning.
Could you address for me, please, what the code requirements actually are regarding trash enclosures and bicycle lockers for projects of this nature?
Sure. Our wastewater, stormwater division requires trash enclosures for multifamily developments, a separated area and covered enclosures.
But I guess I want to get into it a little bit more deeply. Do they define what they mean by trash enclosure? Are the plastic buckets that the utility that they supply us, are
They
those
call those
considered
carts.
carts? Are those considered enclosures, or are they
No,
required to build some separate structure?
A designated area and structure to house the rubber containers.
And is there anything in the code specifically saying what they mean by structure? It's not common on residential stuff to build a garbage enclosure.
Well, this is specifically for multifamily development.
Okay, and for bicycle lockers, the same?
I'm sorry?
For bicycle lockers, what's the standard on that? What is the actual wording of the code?
The standard for this type of development is one long-term bicycle storage unit for each unit.
And what does the code say? The actual words in the code are a storage unit, or is it just a storage area? How is it phrased?
I don't have it off memory, but I can provide that.
There are projects that have closets, like inside the building where a bike could be located. We also have projects where there's enough space inside the garage, like beyond the footprint of a car, where you could put a bicycle, and so there's no locker or anything else. And so we've done it different ways in the past.
Yeah.
So while we're hearing from the applicant, perhaps you could find us the code sections that are relevant? Or maybe you have them already?
Yeah, so we can find the code sections, but just to be clear, the same as Board Member Liu was saying, is that if there was a larger garage space, then these carts and these long-term bicycle spaces could possibly be accommodated in a garage space, but that would need to be a slightly larger garage.
Thank you. I forgot to ask, have we all seen, sorry, Alex, did you have something you wanted to add?
Question.
Certainly.
Hi, Philip. I have a question. on the drawings for Unit 3, which is the, or I'm sorry, for Unit, it's the first unit on sheet A30301.3. So it's showing a daylight plane, a front daylight plane on Hawthorne Street. And my understanding that we don't have front daylight planes, and I'm wondering if you could clarify that for me, please.
Sure, just give me one moment.
Okay, so sheet A301.3.
East elevation.
Yeah, and so we would show, I guess it's showing on the east elevation, which is drawing, well, they're all named drawing number 1.
Is this all the same house? Unit 1, okay. Yeah.
And so there's a 45-degree daylight plane from the front property line shown.
And is your question,
Is that correct? Because my understanding is that we don't have a front daylight plane, and I know we used to have them on just on houses, but we removed we removed a lot of the front daylight planes because they weren't very useful.
No, there is no front daylight plane, so it looks like that may be incorrect.
this is the front of Unit 1.
Yeah, because that's also the unit that's on Hawthorne. So it's not, I was wondering if it was the middle unit, but it's not.
So Unit 1 serves as the front unit, where if there was a front yard setback, it would be
Okay.
And
And then
Unit
is there
1
a-
excuse me, Unit 1 is Hawthorne Avenue?
Hawthorne Avenue.
And Unit 3 is Bryant Court.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, so what was the answer to that? There shouldn't be a daylight
There is
plane?
none.
There is no front yard setback, or front yard daylight plane.
Okay, so
It's
there
section,
shouldn't be...
it's section 18.13.040A, and then there's a big chart, daylight planes, and it only prescribes them for the side and rear lots. Side and rear lot lines.
Correct, and so on the east elevation, this is still on 301.3, that east elevation on the right side, that's the daylight plane that's not necessary. The one on the left side is necessary because that's the rear.
So this means the notch that's currently being taken out of the gable wouldn't have to be notched anymore?
The Dutch hip that's happening on the front of the house is not required, but it is an aesthetic feature.
It's an option. Oh, and just, there's a certain amount of confusion up here because this neighborhood is developed 45 degrees off the cardinal points, and so we sometimes call north what's being referred to as east here.
Yeah, I'm just reading from the plans.
Yes. Okay, we ready for the applicant?
So, wait, one last question. So
Gentlemen,
that part of the roof
can we all be
is
included in this
encroaching in the daylight
conversation?
plane? Right?
Can I have you ask again?
Oh, sorry. So,
Robert, could you two either share it or wait a second for Ozma? Okay. Ozma.
so just to clarify, the side of the daylight plane that does count is also the side that roof gutter drain is slightly encroaching into right now?
On the west elevation?
It's shown on the east and the west elevation.
No, on the east, that rear slight protrusion of the eave protrusions are allowed.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions before we hear? Okay, so I have some questions. Have we all visited the site?
Yes.
Yes? And does anybody have any conversations they need to report? No. All right, nobody has had any extramural conversations, and we've all seen the site. If we could hear from the applicant, you have 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Philip.
And if you could spell your name for the record, our transcriber appreciates it.
Good morning. Thank you, Philip. Thank you, board. My name is Michael Chacon, spelled C-H-A-C-O-N. I am the architect of record. I am here to represent the property owner. First of all, I'd like to apologize for missing the last meeting. I had a medical emergency, which I'm working through still, and it was just unavoidable. So at the same time, I want to thank you for going through my presentation that I had prepared for that meeting, and it seems like you did accomplish a lot without my presence. So hopefully we can wrap this up. That's my goal today. First and foremost, I'm going to respond to, basically, I did listen and review the video for the last meeting, and I'm going to respond to the primarily 3 comments that came out of that meeting. That's my intent today. I do want to clarify for you real quick, though, the confusion that you're having about the elevations. Project North is up on the sheet. It's not to the left. So you're looking at side elevations. So those daylight planes are appropriately labeled for the sides of the house, of all units. Okay, so that should hopefully clarify what you're looking at. Okay, so we don't need to go through all these. Philip was kind enough to go through this for me, where we substituted 6 of the species previously specified with native plants that Board Member Liu had commented on the last time. So I'm just going to move forward on that. Secondly, I'm not sure, I think Philip may actually have an outdated image for what was and what is with regard to the street elevation for Hawthorne. But anyway, I've provided you with that comparison right there. And am I fair, or is it fair for me to say that you're seeing what I see put up there on your screen? Are you seeing? Okay, great, thank you. So to the left was the previously proposed design, and I didn't change the footprint whatsoever. I merely changed the exterior to try and accomplish the idea of addressing the differentiation that you required or requested between units. So this has more craftsman-type features on it. And this is the elevation that faces the street, which is why I show this elevation. And I don't need to go through that bullet list. I think you can see it for yourself, and basically it's covered in the elevation. And the visual aesthetic, I think, is what we're after here. And then I have a 3D rendering of it from Hawthorne without landscaping. And then this is an approximation. Please note that's probably a 3 to 5 year landscape developed approximation. This isn't the first day that construction's complete with all the landscaping planned. But ultimately, it would end up looking like this. Next is the center unit. That's unit 2. So unit 2, I didn't change much. And I didn't change much because I was hoping the board would allow the property owner to at least have 1 unit as they originally requested, as opposed to no units as they originally requested. And I did add, however, a gable over the entry, realizing that it would help to identify the front of the house, even though it's in the center of the site, as the place where you enter. And when you think about it with where those sliding doors are to, in this image to the right, that's where a courtyard would be, and there would be a 3 to 4 foot high fence around that to help identify that, plus landscaping. But I felt like, since I was going through this exercise, and maybe I missed it previously, that this made a lot of sense to add this gable here. I considered, but didn't do it because of the daylight view that we were talking about in previous meetings that the homeowner on Waverly was commenting upon. I considered adding a gable over the second floor, larger window to the right. I thought that would add some visual interest, add a little more style to the house, because it is somewhat simple, I would admit, but I really tried to maintain that valley of openness so that the neighbor would not see one more added on feature to the roof. So I elected not to do that. The next unit is, so here's what it would look like without the landscaping. And you can see where that gable really does help identify where the front entry is. I think it's a really positive change. And then this is what the landscaping might look like in 3 to 5 years after it's developed. And you can see also the fence for the courtyard. So that fence helps differentiate between the sliders and the front entry. The next unit, Unit 3, again, didn't change the footprint, but changed the color. And you have that in the material board that I provided for you. And added some a trellis over the garage, an eave over the sliding glass door, which has a chain downspout from it. So just little things like that to help soften it up. And then the sunburst at the eave at the peak of the gables. And I added a second post on the porch as well to really drive it home. There's a porch there. And the color on the material board helps, again, I think, to addresses what you would ask for as a board to give me more warm colors, more earth tone colors, I should say. And then here it is without the landscaping, and there it is with landscaping that's developed 3 to 5 years. This is just as you see, north site. So as I said, the north is considered, I think I said up when I started, down on the paper. Sorry. Board Member Lou's like shaking his head. Yes, I was confused still. North is down. So the upper elevation is what the neighbors on Waverly would see. And the lower elevation of the site is what the neighbors from the Bryant side, the south side, would see. I just wanted to give you guys a sense of how that would look. So that's a comparison. Sorry, excuse me. This is a comparison of north. Upper is what it was. The bottom is what it is proposed to be.
Excuse me. Go ahead.
The same thing, sorry, I got ahead of myself. This is the same thing for the south side. Upper is what was proposed. Lower is what was previously proposed. And the lower elevation, site elevation, is what's currently proposed. So you can see the changes from that perspective as well, or from that elevation as well. And that's really, those are the 3 questions. I wasn't prepared, but I will speak to the idea of the trash enclosures. In my previous presentation, I had a very long slide with many bullet points about why I felt like, first of all, consolidating the refuse for these 3 units didn't make sense. An enclosure didn't make sense either. And Philip actually talked with the appropriate party about the enclosure, and I believe they waived that part of it, consolidating it, but did not waive the part about locating the enclosures as far away from adjacent properties as possible. My argument is that this is developed, although it's RM15, I do understand that, developed as 3 single-family homes. I said that from the beginning. Now, that doesn't mean that there are 3 single-family homes. It's still a multi-family project. But the intent for the occupants when they live there is that they will feel like they have their own home, their own yards, courtyards, entries. Unfortunately, I can't have its own drive for units 1 and 2. It's a shared drive. But Unit 3 has its own drive. We have the luxury here of having a through lot. We go from Hawthorne to Bryant Court. So I was able to take advantage of that and have a driveway on the Bryant Court side. And because of that, I didn't have to have a 16-foot wide clearance on the side of the lot for this shared driveway, which if you have 3 units in place, you have to have it 16 feet wide, which would have been quite an imposing width to try and develop the properties on. But my argument really is that all the adjacent properties to this property are, even though they're zoned RM15, they are developed as R1. And if anyone wanted to do some work on it, they would have the R1 ordinance imposed upon them. So they would have to, they can follow the R1. And their trash enclosures, and they're not enclosures, but they might have an enclosure that's not not actual overhead canopy, but they might have a little bit of a short fence with a gate in front of it, which is not uncommon to see in residential, just to identify where you keep your containers, can be up against the property line. So I'm basically asking that the occupants of these 3 units have that same sort of luxury, because I placed these where it made sense, where you would use them, where you would go from the kitchen where most of your refuse is collected through the garage to this enclosure. That's for Unit 3, for example, and Unit 2 as well. And that these enclosures then, and when I say enclosures, I'm talking about trash enclosures, trash receptacles. These receptacles would then be taken to the curbside easily, quickly, and not have to be traipsed through from the middle of your backyard to the street. So consistent with that is that the neighbor to the south on Bryant Court is here today, and he commented on where those trash receptacles are located, and we responded.
Thank you. Any questions of the applicant at this point? All right. Osman?
I could not locate where all the bike lockers were.
So at Unit 1, the bike lockers are at what I'll call the back of the house, away from Hawthorne. There's a bike locker back there if you look at the site plan. And then at Unit number 2, it's next to the courtyard. And then at Unit number 3, it's on the side of the house, what I'll call the south side of the property, next to the trash receptacles.
You may sit down. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak? All right.
Wait, sorry, I have one more question.
We have another question of the applicant?
Yes.
The applicant's architect.
For the trash, how does it work? Do they have to wheel their trash out to Hawthorne for pickup every week?
That is the standard. I'm an occupant. I live in Palo Alto.
Okay.
That is the standard practice in Palo Alto, is that you wheel your enclosure to the curb. If, however, you'd like for green waste to go to your backyard or wherever to pick it up, you can pay them for an extra service, or if you're unable to.
And that service is on Bryant as well, even though it's a really tiny street?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Any further questions before we deliberate? Or any further answers before we deliberate?
Yes, I did want to clarify that we do have a general exception for storage structures that are not over 6 feet in height, that those could go 2 feet into a side setback and 4 feet into a front or rear. And so that may help accomplish some of the trash enclosures and bike lockers.
And can you refer us to the code section that we're dealing with here?
Yes, this is 1840-070C as in cat. 1840-070C. Correct.
Projections into yards. I was looking for the code section that requires bicycle storage and trash enclosures.
So in terms of trash enclosures, it's 16.09.180.
Which I don't have a copy of. So why don't you read it to us? So first of all, Philip, just tell me which, this is in our sanitation code or something?
It's in the building
it's
code.
the building code.
Right.
I should know that. What's it say?
It says dumpsters for new and remodeled facilities, new buildings and residential developments providing centralized solid waste collection, except for single-family and duplex residences shall be provided covered area for a dumpster. The area shall be adequately sized for all waste streams and designed with grading and berm system to prevent water runoff from the area. So that's referenced. And then further guidance is provided through stormwater treatment and bay-friendly guidelines. And stormwater quality protection, which speaks to trash and recycling containers, must be covered to prohibit flyaway trash and having rainwater enter
Sure.
containers.
So did they define dumpster? Because this kind of unit is not going to have a dumpster. They're going to have carts.
Correct, and in speaking, as Michael referenced, I spoke with staff from that division. They originally wanted a centralized, dumpster area for this development. Obviously, that probably wouldn't be appropriate. So the the middle ground was for them to provide covered trash enclosures for each unit.
But that could be in a garage if there's space in the garage. I don't read that to say anything else. Once you decide that you're not going to do centralized dumpsters,
Yes, the main issue with trash is that it needs to have a roof over it, so it's protected from the rain, so we're not adding to any stormwater quality issues.
yeah, as you know, I live in an infill project in this neighborhood, not within 500 feet, and we have alley collection, and we have small lots, not this small, but small, and everybody keeps their containers in the garage, and the garages are designed with wide enough spaces on the edge so we have room for both bicycles and containers. Do you, and I'm having a hard time understanding the functionality of going from my kitchen outdoors to a collection spot. Do you think these garages are these garages big enough so that you can get those carts in and out? They're not. Okay, then. And what about bicycles? Is there room for bicycles in the garage?
Yes, so for bicycles, we're looking at the parking section, which is 1852040, and Table 1 is all of our standard parking regulations, which includes bicycles as well. And so for multifamily, that's one bicycle space per unit, and that's to be a long-term space. And I can find further down, it discusses 1854060 discusses the details of what a long-term space is.
Take a look. Sorry, I'm writing on your plans. We don't have very many projects with unattached multiple units, do we?
We've got a few as of late.
Yeah? Well, we may need to think about these things. Okay, long-term bicycle facilities. Long-term bicycle facilities are intended for bicyclists who need to park a bicycle and its components and accessories for extended periods during the day, overnight, or longer duration, typically for employees, students, residents, and commuters. The facility frequently protects the bicycle from inclement weather. 4 design alternatives are available. Bicycle lockers, accessible only to the owner or operator of the bicycle, a fully enclosed space. I would argue that that includes a garage. Restricted access bicycle enclosures, a locked area, maximum capacity is 20 bicycles.
So that's something maybe like at the schools where they have like a bike cage.
Right, or it says it can be within a garage. We've seen those. In multiple family, a common locked garage is okay. Or a multiple family dwelling unit storage locker. A locked area separate from the dwelling unit, secured by a lock that can be opened only by the occupant. Or a school bicycle enclosure, which I think we don't need to think about. Okay. They can't be inside occupied buildings? What?
I think in the past, people were worried that they would be converted to other uses.
I think occupied is more the residence itself, not the garage.
Because we do it all the time. I mean, if you look, if the unit is building, we allow them, I mean, we just finished approving a big project with bicycle. Yeah, they're hardly going to put them in a separate structure. Okay.
So I think
Street level?
the idea too is that there would be easy access to leave,
Right.
come to the site,
we keep
leave your
telling people
bike.
to make them convenient, yes.
Yeah, you're not having to drag your bike up to your unit, which would be normally the case in a larger multifamily
Shall
complex.
be separated from vehicle parking and circulation areas by a physical barrier. Have a 4-foot aisle. This is really difficult. Thank you.
Do we have to hear from the neighbor?
Nobody else cares to speak.
Oh, okay.
All right. Robert?
Okay, first of all, as far as those two items, I think that's real overkill. I mean, every other single residence just has the 3 bins standing on the side of the house or in the garage or whatever, doesn't have a whole structure built over it. But, you know, it is what it is. And the same thing in my garage, I've got 4 hooks hanging there. I have 2 bicycles hanging from those 4 hooks. And my car's parked underneath the bicycle, so it's really, and it's very easy to get to. So, I mean, to me, that seems overkill. As far as the project, I think the revised presentation, I think, does a lot to improve the how it blends with the adjacent neighborhood. The biggest concern on any of these type of projects is how the actual detailing is executed as far as trim and that sort of thing. So I could only go on the assumption that it will be done properly, and if that's the case, I could accept the project as it is.
Thank you. Alex?
Great, thank you for the revisions. I can recommend approval of the project today. With regard to the trash, I think I agree with the staff, which is no enclosure, but try to get them as far from the property line as possible. That's my recollection is that's what staff has been doing on other comparable projects. I think we have there've been like a dozen of these 3-unit projects around downtown, and I don't recall any centralized trash location at all. And these are all 50-foot sites. Maybe on some of them, some of the trash enclosures were, some of the trash containers were in the garages, possibly, but it seems like they're very constrained sites. And I think I do recall one of the neighbors on Bryant Court sort of was concerned that the trash was next to the bedroom window, so I would support moving them, particularly on that particular unit, farther away if possible. And then on the bike lockers, I think we've done it different ways on different projects. And I think what's being shown here is fine. And I think the only other comment that I have is that I think the previous set that you had, I actually think I liked that, preferred that design to this current design, but I think the current design is approvable. I don't, there's not, so it's just I think it was cleaner lines, cleaner colors. You know, there's something about on small units just to keep it simple, and they're starting to my eye, they're starting to get a little cluttered. Okay, and that's all that I have. Thank you.
Peter?
Good morning. I find myself in agreement with Robert offered regarding the building design. I can recommend approval for that part of it. I'm only chagrined that the bike lockers take up what I see as precious outdoor space, and I'd love to see some other alternative, given that the code is obviously complex, and I defer to staff and whatever the applicant comes up with, so I can recommend approval. Thank you.
Asma?
Hi there. So regarding the front elevations, I guess I'll start there. I do like the changes that you made. I did notice one item, which I'm not sure if it was a design choice, but on page 301.3, the west elevation, the sort of the top right part of that elevation has part of the building sticking out, and the roofs, there's sort of, so you can see the roof line behind a roof line. And in some of the other buildings on the street, that that those roof lines are aligned, and so I wondered if that was a choice or if that may have been an oversight, that maybe you might have wanted to align them so that you kind of do get those cleaner lines. So that's kind of one thing I noted that I'm sort of willing to hear more on. I actually like the sunburst choice on Bryant Street. I think it makes that elevation look a lot nicer. There's another building on that road that kind of does something similar. Regarding the trash enclosures, it's true. A lot of single-family residences don't have really good infrastructure for their trash. Everybody just keeps the bins either in their garage, and it's kind of too bad in some ways. Like, I kind of appreciate that maybe there is something that's pushing this project to think of a better solution than just to have your bins out, and it's kind of ugly. So I actually think more could be done, and I think in some sense you do have some push, in your design that you could somehow include a trash enclosure that's close. I mean, speaking from someone who like hates to take out the trash, the idea of going outside of my house and across the street to take out the trash sounds even worse. So I think having a solution that keeps it as close, to the house, to the kitchen, to the garage, or whatever as possible, I think that's really important to the project. So I would support changing what's on here to get there more. I actually did have a question on other kind of passive systems. I wasn't sure if you looked at a gray water system. You have laundry on site, you have irrigation on site. I know a lot of homeowners have been sort of re-tricking their houses backwards so that they can kind of do that, but given that this is a new construction, I was wondering if that's something that you guys considered to use gray water or might consider. Oh, okay.
I think the laundry to gray water was in the notes somewhere that I read.
Project description.
I didn't see
That's a
that.
current green building requirement, that the house be fitted for potential gray water use of laundry equipment in the future. They have to have a diverter valve, but there's no requirement beyond that at present.
Okay, I didn't see that anywhere, but it'd be good to see that.
It's a building code requirement, right? At this point.
California Green Building Code, yeah.
So that will be done.
It's not in the drawings.
Beg your pardon?
It's not in the drawings because it doesn't.
Right, because it's not something that's subject, it's, could you come to the microphone, please?
Okay.
I didn't know if I should come and talk.
Yes, please, since we asked you a question. It's not clear.
First of all, it's a California Green Building Code requirement, but it doesn't show up in design drawings. The appropriate time to put that information in the drawings is for building permit application, and that's when Cal Green. It's also, though, however, in this set, because the Green Building checklist is in there in the set, and it calls for that.
Okay, thanks.
That's a very satisfactory answer.
Can I
Thank you.
clarify two things?
Of course.
Each one of the enclosures has fences around them for the receptacles, not just thrown up against the fence. First of all, it doesn't seem like you're all reading that properly. And there are bike lockers for all three of these. There's no contention about bike lockers. Each one of these units has a bike locker.
I think we understand that it has a bike locker. We're just questioning our own code's requirements. We don't mean to torture you with our dissatisfaction with the code.
That's my point, really. I met the code, and it's there, so I'm not sure why it's being discussed.
Partly because we are not familiar with every in and out of our own code, and each application that comes before us presents issues. Sometimes they're novel for some of us. Who hasn't?
She still has the floor.
You've got the floor.
I think I said most of my comments.
All right. I guess it's my turn. I like the modifications to unit number 3. I think on that very small scale, extremely eclectic street should work well. I regret that there may not be enough space in the garage for them to substitute as bike lockers, and I do have a feeling if it were my unit, I would want a bike locker that could be converted to a different use easily, but this is within the applicant's choices, I think. I do think that the trash enclosure on Unit 2 should be as far as possible from the adjacent property and as close as possible to the people who are going to be using it. I think you dealt with that in your proposed findings, but you might want to confirm that for me, or proposed conditions, rather.
Yes, that's included in the conditions.
Condition number 4, right?
Yes.
Thank you, sorry. Does anybody want to make a motion, or does anybody want further discussion?
I will make a motion that we recommend approval of the project as presented, and with the conditions of approval in the staff report.
I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Wait, I had a question, sorry. In the conditions of approval, that's talking about moving the trash away from...
Condition number
okay.
4 says, as required by the multiple family performance criteria outlined in Palo Alto Municipal Code Section 18.23020A, and upon review and approval by the Planning Department, the applicant shall relocate the trash and recycling enclosures of units 2 and 3 off of side yard lot lines shared with abutting lots to a location as far from the neighboring residence as reasonably possible.
Okay.
I think they got it. That passes unanimously. Thank you for your submittals and resubmittals, and we look forward to seeing the project built.
As I was saying, it seems like the bin storage or whatever is going to become a storage unit, and the bins will probably be standing outside, just like every other garage is in.
I want to say in my neighborhood, we have an alley, and we all keep our trash cans in our garages. But we may not keep our cars in the garages. At least not the second one. Okay, I want to propose that we do the minutes before we do our study session while we're sitting up here. So if we could go to items 4 and 5. Those are the minutes for the meetings of April 5th and April 19th of this year. Any comments? Let's start with April 5th. Oh, gosh, when did you discuss Raphaelepsis? Because I have a bunch of clerical errors in I noticed that the transcriber has asked for help on plant names and perhaps.
That's the next set,
great.
the April 19th minutes.
I didn't put the notes on it. Okay. Any comments, additions, or corrections on April 5th?
Yes, absolutely.
Board Member Liu.
So under item number 8, which is the subcommittee item, the transcript there is actually the board talking about the subcommittee item. The board was discussing the subcommittee item, but the actual subcommittee did meet and approved the revisions that were required of the subcommittee.
In other words, there's no transcribed minutes for the subcommittee.
So we don't normally do minutes of, well, we usually just put a line, like one little line item saying that the subcommittee
Correct.
approved
So
the
I can
changes.
check those. There is supposed to be a couple sentences or two of summary of the subcommittee decision.
But what they did was put the header in the wrong place, so it looks like the board discussion is subcommittee discussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Well, and also, yeah, and then the second subcommittee item was number 9, which was the 180 Hamilton, and the subcommittee approved the landscaping revisions.
So yes, the subcommittee approved the landscape changes, and we'll get that summary in there.
Thank you. May I have a motion?
I'll move that we approve the minutes for April 5th, 2018.
I'll second.
As amended by the amendment suggested by the Board Member Liu. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? They're approved unanimously. Draft Architectural Review Board meeting minutes for April 19th, 2018. Any changes or corrections?
So on this one, there were some plant names that even I didn't know, and so I purposely left that in there.
Well, if we could, I certainly know how to spell Arctostophalis. I don't even know what Lionothamus is, but I think we could get
I think
that.
they were trying, it was Muhlenbergia, which is Muhlenbergia, right?
Yep.
And Arctostaphylos is Phyllos. Manzanita for everybody
Yeah,
else.
Manzanita would be fine.
And I'm right in thinking, Alex, that you looked that up in advance, right?
No, I know how to spell Arctostaphylis.
I actually grow, so like I grow native plants as a side hobby from.
And he labels them.
It's from all the stress of architecture, and I go to the gardening because the plants don't talk back to you like architecture clients.
What about Lionothamus? What do you think that was? I'm looking at page 4. It's on the plans.
Yeah, I don't remember what that is. There was a tree, right? Yeah, there was a tree.
Well, either we'll send it to you or you'll let it stand.
There
We're trying to balance.
there aren't that many native trees.
We're trying to balance between, unwise use of scarce public resources and our feeling it really ought to be correct.
Yes, I would welcome an email with some of the plant names.
All right, well, Alex, I think you've got the expertise. Subject to any clerical error correction, do I have a motion to approve these? I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Motion by Firth, second by Thomas. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right. That was Thompson, not Thomas. We have a study session, and again, let's take our last board item before we go do our last regular agenda item before we go do our study session. Board member questions, comments, or announcements? Anything? I have one.
Oh, I was wondering if staff could update us on the appeal for the Verizon project. Is there a date for that?
Monday.
Okay, I don't need the information.
Well, while you're looking that
around.
up, I will, and you should let us, is this something which is likely to need a board member in attendance?
I can confirm that and let
Let
you
us
know
know.
by email. And
Thanks.
so maybe I'll just email you the date and let you know
Fine.
if someone needs to attend.
So I have something, a report or comment. I went and toured University Terrace, which is the housing that was constructed pursuant to the Mayfield Agreement at the top of, is it California or is it Stanford?
California.
California. And the university is happy to have any of us tour it. Now is a good time to do it because the condominium buildings aren't fully occupied and there's still unoccupied single-family residences. It's fascinating to see a project that I thought I was not going to live long enough to see built out. And I was really impressed by many aspects of it. And we don't see a lot of development at that density. We don't see a lot of development with that many common amenities. I mean, there are common rooms, there's a swimming pool, there are a number of parks, and a lot of the things that the neighborhood in College Terrace worked hard to get, like a continuation of the street grid, fairly compatible detached dwellings facing them, no driveways. It's interesting to see how it's worked out. It's really interesting to see the landscaping and the stormwater control. Everything is in full bloom. So I'm sure if you talk to staff, they can arrange it. or you could talk to Stanford directly.
We had
I was
very,
impressed.
yeah, and the board had minimal involvement in that project.
The reason the board we did still have ARB approval, and I don't know that the applicant considers it minimal, but
Pretty minimal. For the size of that project, it was minimal.
this is 158 units, about 78 to the acre. And it's interesting to see something at that density in this area that's built more recently than 1970. So I
You're speaking of
recommend
the
it.
houses on Calav?
Yes.
Yeah, 180 units,
180 units.
yeah.
So
So
that's
about 68, I want to say, single-family, and the rest in the 2 multifamily buildings.
the other thing that's interesting about it is these are neither studio nor one bedroom. These are all either family or we both need offices units. They have a lot of room. These are not small units. So go take a look. Yes.
So, and back to your original question about the appeal on wireless, it looks like it's on the council agenda for May 21st. And so I will confirm very quickly if we need ARB attendance.
Thank you.
Is there a cutoff for that tour in terms of like how late we could?
There is no tour at the moment. Actually, staff was wanting to have a tour, and we're still kind of working out the details with Stanford, so there isn't a date or anything at this moment.
This is sort of a tour for the battle-hardened veterans. Because we negotiated this and the city and Stanford and left a lot of things open. You know, they had performance standards, but not a whole lot of other thing. And it's interesting to see what they did. They did have a very long consultative process with their future customers who they knew, because it's faculty. And I think that had some interesting impacts. And Gazzardo did the landscaping. I would say work through, when I was there yesterday, they said to extend the invitation to everybody, so there you go. I recommend you take them up on it. All right, I think there's nothing left but our study session. And
Did you want to, yeah, I don't think we need the recording. We were going to do this more, roundtable style. Did you want to stay where you are?
do you have a table we can sit around?
Or we can sit around the table here. There is the table in the back as well.
I think the table in the back would be great. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Well, this meeting is not adjourned, but the study session part of it will take place over there. And because it's a study session, we will be taking no decisions. We will not even be making recommendations.